Chapter 32, Over and Only Just Begun. When the service ended, small crowds gathered around Amy and I, anxious to hear the story of last night's adventure firsthand. I wasn't quite comfortable being such a center of attention, but complied anyway. A few people noticed that Amy's and my version of the story differed somewhat. When Amy accused me of downplaying my part in the events, I jokingly reminded her that she had been delirious and her mind must have exaggerated the facts. The Halls invited Grandma and me over for Sunday dinner after church. "I don't know how to thank you, Spencer," Mr. Hall kept saying. "Then don't worry about it," I'd answer. "I understand. I don't need any thanks." "Hey, Netta," Amy teased, "want to hear what really happened inside that cozy little snow cave?" I sat in the living room while Netta went upstairs to change. Amy walked in and sat sideways on the couch next to me. "I haven't seen my sister this happy since before our mom got sick," she announced with satisfaction. "Really?" I asked, wondering why Netta told me anything about their mother. "What does she have?" "She didn't tell you?" Amy asked, raising an eyebrow in surprise. "I shouldn't be shocked to hear that. She doesn't like to talk about it even though it's been 10 years. 10 years since she got sick? No," Amy answered nonchalantly. 10 years since she died. "What?" I blurted out, feeling shocked at the abrupt revelation. I had no idea. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Hey," Amy said, waving it off. "These things happen." "Really?" I asked incredulously. "Is it that easy for you now?" "It's the past," Amy explained. "I miss her sometimes, sure, but getting all depressed about it won't bring her back." I stared at Amy in admiration of her ability to let go and move on. "What did she have?" I asked. "She caught some kind of heartworm when we lived in Brazil. By the time the doctors figured out what was making her sick, it was too late to treat it." "I can't imagine how devastating that would be," I admitted. "We moved to Hawaii after that and had a few more years together. But even then, Netta was in total denial the whole time. She got mad or left the house whenever Mom took her medication, and she almost didn't come to the hospital to finally say goodbye." "Wow. And this is the happiest you've seen her since then?" "You," Amy said, reaching over to touch my arm, "broke through the impenetrable wall. She's never let anyone else really get to her heart since she was 12 years old. But I shouldn't be surprised." "I know," I agreed. "That sounds rough." "No, not that," Amy objected. "I mean, I'm not surprised that you broke through her walls." "Why's that?" I asked, curious and eager for whatever compliment I hoped would follow. "Because my dear sister Annetta never outgrew her fairy tale expectations. Despite her distant and cold exterior, she still believes that the meaning of life is to live in a continual state of bliss. So when along comes the dashing, charming, confident Spencer Cook, who not only swears his undying devotion to her, but rides into the storm to slay the dragon, well, how could she resist? Her sweetest dreams have all come true, and nothing bad can ever happen again as long as she and her doting Prince Charming live happily ever after." I expected Amy's explanation to make me feel good, but by the time she finished, I felt a bit uncomfortable instead. "I don't know if I can promise that." "Of course you can't," Amy agreed. "Life is not bliss. It's hard. It's downright brutal sometimes." "But if you accept that," I said thoughtfully, then you get over it," Amy interrupted. "You let go and get on with living." "And it's not all hard," I continued. "No, not at all," Amy agreed enthusiastically, sitting up straighter as her eyes lit up. "It's so beautiful. Even when things are hard, life is still so beautiful." "So what happens to Annetta when things don't turn out perfectly?" I asked, still a little worried about the daunting task I had unwittingly taken on. "Oh, I wouldn't worry too much about that," Amy reassured me. "She already knows it can't last, and this time she's the one leaving, so she won't feel abandoned and betrayed." Amy's reassurance didn't exactly reassure me. What did she mean exactly that this couldn't last? Had everything really already been decided? But before I could formulate and ask the question, Netta came downstairs and called us to dinner. Once we had eaten, my full stomach and the lack of sleep started catching up to me, and I could hardly keep my eyes open. As the conversation around the table continued, I was escorted to the living room couch and given a blanket. "It's the least we can do," everyone kept saying. I was too drowsy to argue. When I woke up, Grandma had gone home and everyone else was just settling down for a nap. Annetta had already curled up with a pillow and blanket on the floor next to the couch. Her eyes were closed and she seemed to be asleep. Isn't life ironic, I thought? I finally find just what I want, and I can only keep it for another week. I began reviewing my options. We could write, and I could hope someday we'd be together again and wait and see what came of it. I could go back to school and try to replace her, maybe even put her out of my mind until we could see each other again. Neither option sounded very good. I could try to convince her to come back sooner than 3 years. I could move to France myself. Neither of these options sounded very likely to happen right away. I could visit her in France, but then I'd have to come home and find myself in the exact same situation. Plans like that would take more time to develop. I'd just have to wait and let life play itself out. Annetta's eyes opened and she looked up at me. "What you thinking about?" "You," I answered. Annetta frowned at this. "You don't look too happy. Is something wrong?" "No," I answered, "but it will be in about a week." Her frown faded and she nodded empathetically. "I'll miss you too." "So what happens then?" "Well," she answered, "life goes on." I thought about that for a moment. "And what does that mean exactly?" "It means you go back to school and I go to France," she answered. "You've already paid tuition and I already have a plane ticket." "I see," I said, but I didn't see at all. How could this girl who started out so determined not to get involved in a short-term relationship so suddenly flip to the opposite extreme and become so determined to get serious for a week and then end it that abruptly? Had I missed something? Had I misunderstood her intentions? My mind was still a bit groggy from sleep, and hazy thoughts all ran together. I gave it one more chance. And then what? Then we write and go on with our lives. You have to trust life to work out. I've never lived in France, so I don't know what to expect. I'll look for a job and go from there. And you have school to finish. You must have lots of friends, and I'm sure all the girls will be dying to go out with you. So it was true. She didn't plan to see me again and was telling me to get on with my life and without her. "And you're okay with that?" I asked. "It helps a lot that I'm going to France, I think. The 2 weeks here without you will be lonely, but I'll be so excited to explore the cities and beaches and practice my French that I'm sure I'll get by all right." At least I wouldn't have to worry about her being okay. I turned my face the other way into the couch cushions. I didn't feel like looking at her anymore. "So what about you?" she asked. "Do you have any exciting classes? Are you looking forward to going back to school?" I thought about what I had to look forward to. Classes would be okay, but nothing I'd call exciting. For a moment, I remembered Julie, her bright blue eyes, her smile, her face that was even more beautiful than Netta's. Then I remembered the way her eyes lit up when she and Ski had gone off together after finals. No, nothing to look forward to there either. At least I had the canyons full of snow and my cross-country skis. "Hey, I know," Annetta continued, "you could take a French class." Maybe she had known to plan for this goodbye all along, but I hadn't. It never occurred to me that she could let go so easily. Now she was trying to lighten things up, to cheer me up, but I didn't feel like cheering up. When I didn't answer, Annetta sat up and scratched my back. I guess I only had myself to blame for everything. I had made my wish, it had come true, and now I had to live with the consequences. I was the one pushing for us to get more serious all along, and when she allowed me to pull her closer, I had assumed that her feelings had changed as well. I assumed that she, like me, would start thinking about the long term. This entire misunderstanding is my fault, I thought. I can't blame her for anything. I turned my face back to her. I would muster up a little courage and try to take it as well as I could. "Oui," I said. "C'est la vie." Netta laughed at this and hugged me. I hugged her back half-heartedly. It made me feel a little better. "You look hammered," she said. "Do you want me to take you home?" "Yeah, I guess that sounds good," I answered, trying to decide whether or not I'd rather be alone. I folded the blanket and set it on the couch, then put my shoes back on. My shirt was wrinkled, and my face probably still carried the red impressions from the couch fabric. We walked out to the car, and the bright sunlight made me squint. A perfect winter day shone all around us, but all I could think about on the drive home was how much longer it would take for spring to arrive. Then I would finally be able to hike comfortably in the hills. I could sit in the new, tall mountain grasses and flowers and watch the wind dance in patterns over them without growing cold. I could spend entire days lying on my back there, staring up at the blue, blue sky as sunlight filtered through the high leaves swaying gently in the breeze. Maybe then I would feel better. Maybe then I could forget all about Annetta and this roller coaster Christmas vacation. Grandma opened the front door and invited Annetta in before she could drop me off. Netta held my hand as we walked up the steps and into the living room. Grandma disappeared into the kitchen and emerged with 2 pieces of pumpkin pie dabbed with whipped cream. I came home and I just couldn't sit still, she told us excitedly. Usually when I come home to the empty house, it feels so big and empty, but today, she searched for the right word, today felt different. I came home and was just so happy, as if a shadow has been lifted from me. Annetta squeezed my hand extra hard. I knew what she meant. Maybe things had changed permanently for Grandma. Maybe it's knowing that Spencer and Amy are safe, Grandma continued, or seeing you two so happy together, or knowing that tomorrow night all my children and grandchildren will begin to arrive. Grandma's homemade pumpkin pie is my favorite food in the world. I ate slowly, savoring each bite. This also kept me from having to say much. Inside, I was torn between loving Annetta and wanting to back off and protect my heart. Courage was a different matter when I thought she was only playing it safe. If I had known all along that the relationship just didn't mean that much to her, or that she didn't plan to keep it once we both moved away, I would have been wiser and never would have pressed for more involvement. You still look awfully tired, Annetta said. Do you want to go upstairs and get more sleep? Yeah, maybe I should, I answered. Annetta walked me up to my room, where she gave me a tight squeeze and a soft kiss. Sweet dreams, Spencer, she said. I get off tomorrow at 4. Want to drop by and meet my family? I asked. I would probably feel better by then anyway. Maybe I had been blowing everything out of proportion. Sounds great, she said, kissing me again. I held her warm body against me for a minute, then walked into my room and lay down, but couldn't sleep. I picked up the copy of Les Mis from the library and started reading. From downstairs, the happy voices of my 2 favorite girls floated up to my ears. Chapter 33. C'est la vie. I read late into the night and picked up the book again as soon as I woke the next morning. By the time I got up and showered at 3:30 in the afternoon, I had read enough to learn that life is not fair. It had never occurred to me that I expected it to be. Netta would show up soon, and I decided to discuss the idea with her. Maybe that would help me feel better about the situation between us. I could at least tell her some of my thoughts, and we could reach a better understanding. Maybe she'd even change her perspective a bit and allow for the possibility of a more lasting relationship, even if it meant carrying that on long distance. At 4 o'clock, I checked outside to see if Annetta had come and then realized she would just be getting off work. I suddenly missed having cell service, so I could at least send her a text. See you soon, I'd write, and she would reply by commenting on how she couldn't wait. I picked up the book again and read on. I was entirely immersed in the story until the doorbell rang 3 chapters later. I threw the book on my bed and ran downstairs. I was in a much better mood than yesterday, and I was anxious again to see Annetta. When I reached the stairs, I noticed how much time had passed. The shadows stretched all along the living room floor as my family carried bags of clothes and food inside from the car. "Spencer!" cried my youngest sister, dropping her gym bag in the doorway and running to meet me on the stairs. Diane had just started kindergarten this fall. "Hey, baby sister," I laughed, picking her up and swinging her around. "I'm not a baby," she objected. "I'm 5. I gave her a tight squeeze, and she squeezed back as hard as she could in the game we called Squeeze Your Air Out. "Diane," Alicia yelled, "get your bag out of the way." Alicia was 12 and just making her way through the front door with 4 full duffel bags of clothes and toys for the week away from home. "Spencer," she said when she saw me, her tone changing instantly. She set her things down near the couch and walked over for her hug. "Why didn't you come home first?" she asked, looking puzzled and like she missed me. "Well," I told her, "I knew there wouldn't be room for me in the car with all your stuff anyway. Also, there was this girl here I wanted to meet." "A girl? Woo-woo," she teased. "Spencer has a girlfriend," she added in a sing-song voice. "You do?" Diane asked. "Who is she?" "Her name's Annetta," I answered, "and you can meet her soon when she comes over." I glanced up at the grandfather clock. 5:30. I wondered what was taking her so long. Maybe she had to stay home for dinner. Mom and Dad came in next, hugging me or shaking my hand and wishing me Merry Christmas. So, what have you done with yourself since you've been up here? Dad asked. Oh, I've done some reading and made a few friends, mostly just relaxed after a tough semester. I see, Dad said in his way that meant he wondered if I could have used my time more productively. And that's exactly what he plans to keep doing, too, Mom chimed in protectively, so don't you say a thing about it. Will you be coming home with us this weekend? Dad asked. I think I'll be staying here till school starts, actually, I answered. That sounds great, Mom said. You can keep Grandma company and help her with... A sudden, stern look from Dad stopped the rest of the sentence. Mom smiled at both of us and pretended there wasn't anything else to say. Grandma announced then that dinner was almost ready and she could use some help setting the table. Should we set a place for Annetta? She asked me. I wished I knew. I wished I could message her and ask. I would write, "What's up? You okay?" And she would reply and I would quit worrying. I could always phone, but I didn't want half the town listening in on our private conversation, which is probably why she hadn't called either. Looks like she's not coming, I answered. Maybe she'll drop by later. At 10 o'clock, Netta still hadn't shown up. I had long since given up hope of seeing her tonight and had decided to just play it cool for the rest of vacation. More cousins would be here tomorrow, and I'd have plenty of catching up and things to keep my mind off her. I could always change my mind later, but for now, I didn't want any more disappointment. Hey, Spencer, Alicia said as we sat around playing Scrabble. How about a snowmobile ride tomorrow? I'm afraid we won't be riding the snowmobile for a few days at least. Why not? She asked, with everyone looking curiously on. I sort of wrecked it. You what? Dad and Alicia said simultaneously. I hit a big drift and crunched up the front end. It still runs, but I should get it fixed first. It's probably going to cost a couple $100. Before anyone gets too upset, Grandma interrupted, you should know that Spencer saved a young woman's life. Dad's eyebrows raised, surprised, and Alicia complained, Yeah, but did you have to wreck the snowmobile? Yeah, I answered, I had to. What's all this about saving someone's life? Dad asked. Oh, I answered, this girl got stuck in a storm, so I went and got her. Why did you have to wreck the snowmobile? Alicia asked again. Because there was a big drift in the way. Why couldn't you just go around? Because I had to go through it. You could have gone around it instead. But then we would have been too cold. Was it your girlfriend? Diane asked. No, I answered. It was her sister. But she's not my girlfriend anyway. Grandma looked surprised. She told everyone the story of the storm and the snow cave. I'm proud of you, Spencer, Dad said. How about if I help you pay to repair it? Thanks, Dad, I said. That's really nice of you. That's cool, Alicia said, no longer complaining, then sat up straighter. I want to see it. We all put on our coats and walked out to the barn where I searched through the truck's glove box for a flashlight. Looks all right to me, Dad said as I stepped down with the flashlight. It felt nice to have Dad go easy on me for once, and I appreciated it. I turned on the light and shone it on the snowmobile to show the damage, but there was none. The windshield stood straight and unbroken atop the smooth engine cover and uncracked headlight. My mouth dropped open in surprise. Well, that was a pretty good story, Dad said after a moment's pause. You sure had us going along with it. Alicia looked at me funny, wondering why Grandma and I had made up such a strange story. So can we go for a ride tomorrow? She asked. Yeah, sure, I answered, wondering who could have fixed the sled. I ran my fingers under the cowling and found half a dozen washers to correct the spacing and make the cover fit straight where the crash had bent the frame. The others walked back inside, but I stayed in the barn, sitting on the snowmobile for a while, holding the familiar handlebars and sorting out my thoughts and feelings. Why hadn't Annetta come or even called? Could she have been the one to fix the sled? No, the parts must have been picked up in Evanston, and if she worked till 4, she wouldn't have had time to pick them up and do the repair. Maybe she just got busy, but with what? Oh well, life's not fair, I reminded myself. I jumped out of the truck bed and walked out of the barn. The stars shone brightly in the black winter sky. The moon wasn't up yet, and I decided to go for a walk in the dark. I set out between the corn stalks, still standing straight and dry. Snow crunched below my feet as I walked, and nature worked its magic on me, getting inside and calming me again, soothing away most of the pain of disappointment for the moment. I kept walking for what must have been half an hour. By then, the cold had worked its way into my toes and face. The moon was just inching over the horizon, turning the sky light and erasing the dimmest stars. I turned around and headed home. The house lights were all off when I arrived, and I slipped quietly upstairs to my room and fell asleep.